Welcome back to another episode of NEOSOULED Radio. This is Kyrie Nashim, aka NEOSOULED, and we have a very special guest today, Lonnie, aka Lionel J. Bands.
Yes, and the J stands for jacking a bitch.
To start off, you want to introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about you.
I am a sound artist, a newly practicing installation artist. I DJ, and sometimes I make experimental films.
Yes.
And I like to play with food, but I've been on a hiatus from that, so.
Okay, yes, and I've seen a lot of your cooking online. I mean, in addition to all of the different means of expressing yourself, I would definitely call you a multidisciplinary artist.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, yes, I'm multidisciplinary, but I think that the way I view my creative practice and my lifestyle, they're interdependent. So it's like I practice as I live.
And can you take us through the journey of your artistry? Have you been creating from a young age or?
Oh, yeah. I think I started drawing when I was like maybe 3 or 4 because my dad's an illustrator. My mom's actually a retired chef.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So I got to witness my mom go to culinary school. I have young parents, so I grew up in a creative household, always liked to write. So I feel like storytelling and writing came first. I guess the tie to filmmaking was like, I always wanted to draw scenes and write underneath like what was going on. And that's essentially what storyboarding is. And so that was like my first thing. I've always just made noise. Like I sang my whole life. I had like toy instruments and I would make sound with them, picking up guitar, picking up keys by ear. If I knew a song, I would try to find the notes on the keyboard and like play them.
Wow. And I definitely find as an adult connecting to your passion and finding your purpose, a lot of times you have to look back at the things that you always connected to as a child.
Oh, yeah. I still love to write. I still like to describe things. That's the practice that I would actually say that I neglect, if that makes sense. Like, I have the urge to write, and I've had one for about 6 months, but I've been really hesitant to pick it up again. But I think that's because I've been in a period of like studying, revising, editing, and other aspects, like with music, stuff like that. When I write, I like to kind of freeform, recall the event, and then go back and just tweak. Like, there's not a lot of fiddling around. I don't feel the need to kind of like butcher my own words, if that makes sense.
I feel that. And that leads me into my next question. As somebody who has so many different means of expressing yourself artistically, how do you find the time or decide which of your interests that you want to pour into when?
Oh, that's strictly emotional. That's emotional, and like, if I'm gonna be very, very frank, the bag. I'm not money motivated. Money doesn't feel like a reward. It's a tool. I don't do these things for money. I do them because I love them. And usually that's when the bag grows. Oh, wow. So today is the day that I have just come off a stint of playing 2 shows per weekend since Labor Day weekend.
Oh, wow.
My Virgo season tour.
Yes. Congratulations. You are now doing art full time, and that's sustaining you. And that's such a beautiful thing that so many people strive for. Was the road leading up to this point, was it tough? Were there ups and downs? Did you ever have to deal with, self-doubt or naysayers, people judging you?
This is very serendipitous. Full disclosure, my last show, as in last night, I played my best, but it was not my best set. When I talk about like the emotional aspect and the time, there's always this lamenting of like, I want to be doing this, but I'm doing that. Because getting booked to DJ, I set my dates, I say no a lot. I'm okay to say no. And sometimes I kind of get at myself about it because I'm like, but you need the money. But if you only do it for the money, do you really love it? And are you going to show up as you would want to see a performer? Because I also, as much as I perform and as much as I make art, I guess, I observe it. I'm always looking at other people's stuff. I'm always like going to shows just to listen to other DJs, like on my nights off. Now that people know that I DJ, they're like, are you here? Are you working? I'm like, no. I'm here to be a dumb bitch. Sometimes I tell people I'm here to be a dumb bitch, which means you'll catch me on the dance floor. I probably have sweats on. Mm-hmm. Or it's like, I'm here to study, which I probably have sweats on. I look like I don't belong in the club. I look like I should be in bed. But I have the notepad out. I have my Shazam ready. Like, mm-hmm.
So you study from other artists through observation and experiencing what they put out.
You know what's funny? I don't look at what they put out because I feel like so much of our taste is, once again, subjective and relative to our own experience. Mm-hmm. I look at how they show up. Mm-hmm. So this goes back to what I was saying about my lifestyle being interdependent and then being full-time. I had a really hard time getting on a roll. So I have a bi-weekly radio show, a monthly radio show. Shout out Chef Worldwide. We have a monthly bar residency, and then I play shows in between. Aside from the DJing stuff, I produce 2 podcasts. Both are monthly, and then I just got a gallery job. So we'll see. Like that, I get to get in where I fit in. There's that, and then I still take DJing gigs, one of which is like a corporate thing that I do like every 2 weeks.
And so with your art taking up so much of your time, I mean, congratulations again for this being something that you're actually being able to live off of now. But I understand why it's so important for you to find that balance and not get burnt out, you know?
I lift weights. Like, I'm doing art full time, but I also do it for me. And this is something that I tell people and they kind of find it blasphemous. I don't utilize all of my creative outlets as a monetary source. So when I do installation work, like that altar, like that wasn't something that I was paid to do. It was a project that I was asked to present and then I was given a stipend. No one would have asked me to do it if I had just done it and had it done like on a public display on my own, like found some sort of way to exhibit it on my own. It's strictly for the love and it was strictly for the art of social practice. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the next installation piece that I do. I also don't sell the music that I make. It's just on like, you know, streaming platforms. I let people donate or pay what they want because it's just like, okay, if that's your means of showing support, I'm not going to bar you from that. But there is this dance, especially because all of my work is performance-based. I have so much alone time that I have to carve out. Like, I tell people very, sometimes sternly, no, I don't have time. Or I'm like, bitch, I'm zapped. Like, I need a nap.
Right. And, you know, there's so much power in saying no. I think that's something that we all have to learn as adults, especially as artists, because it's so easy to just be gung-ho with everything. And next thing you know, there's too much pressure on yourself and you just don't want to leave your room or interact with other people. And I'm one of those people, I'll overwork myself until I shut down, and then I'm wondering why I'm in this.
Aren't you a Capricorn?
Yes, I'm very much. So I'm relating to you on the
I'm looking at you like, aren't we?
Yeah.
Earth signs. Have you disclosed your moon and rising? Is that like off limits here?
No, it's not. I mean, I literally have my moon side tattooed on me. I'm a Pisces moon, and then I'm a Scorpio rising. So I have a lot going on. Enough about me.
Okay, as a Virgo sun and Virgo moon. It's funny because when you think about like my creative process, it's very emotional, but I'm able to process my emotions before I feel them. The feeling usually comes second.
I feel that.
I feel the visceral impact in my body, and I know, and that's how I'm able to identify the emotion. After I take like some hours and I'm actually processing it like verbally or written, I'm like, oh God, I feel it. And then I'm like emotional and I'm like, ugh. The journey to doing this full time. It kind of was birthed out of necessity. 50% of it was necessity. There was so much uncertainty. I never intended to be a full-time artist. I always used to say I don't want to do art for survival. And what I realize is I don't want to do anything for survival. I just want to exist.
You want to thrive.
I want to thrive, but yes, my existence should not cost. Fuck capitalism.
No, period.
The tipping point for me was my last coffee job. I was working for a Black-owned business, and because they were using just rhetoric that was supposed to be empowering to Black people, but putting me in these very white performative dynamics, and also just like forcing me into a trope that I have vehemently rejected. Yes, I've recently been like, stay mad, but that's different than being a mad Black woman. Staying mad means that you're aware of your tender spots. You know that you care about these spots being poked. if I don't get upset about something, if I don't feel the visceral feeling, then I know that I'm dissociating. I was dissociating a lot at the job, and then I would have to go play shows after. And I would listen to them back, and like some would be really on and some would be off. So the first thing was like consistency in how I show up. When I envision future me, and when I envision, like, I guess the term would be nirvana. I show up poised, but not poised because everyone thinks I'm fake perfect. Poised because I'm like, I had my peanut butter and jelly. Even if I had to rush to get here, it's like, like I'm okay, like I'm content. And to be content, I have my things that I like to do. And that job at every angle was like, it ruined my eating schedule. It ruined my sleeping schedule. I forced art into it. And I was like, wow, if I'm making this much space for this, how many of the things that I actually am not interested in would fall by the wayside if I dedicated this to this? But I had to quit that job like a month sooner than I anticipated because it was going to conflict with me getting surgery. It was like a safety risk. And I was like, the surgery over everything. That was the tipping point because I had a whole month. And so I was like, well, I've been trying to finish this EP. Someone asked me to be a part of the live performance event for their magazine release. Shout out Queer Rain.
Beautiful. I would love to see this, if it was recorded or anything.
Oh my gosh, I do have the... Stop reminding me that I gotta edit videos.
No. So take me back to this EP that you recently released. Can you give us some details on it?
Yeah, it's called Graveyard. So there will always be something to do. It doesn't have to be me who does it. And I had to learn that the hard way through that job. And getting to that was like getting through the EP. The installation project that's associated with it was called My Practice of Rest and Release. I took the hoodoo concept of building honey jars as like they're spells, but they're prayer jars, but they're also ways for you to just encapsulate an intention. It was dedicated to fear and anger centered around grief. Because a lot of people don't know how to process grief because they think of it as one emotion and it's really just a process. So the whole process of making it, I had to be very real with everyone else around me. And that was where I started learning discernment. Like, the internet doesn't need to know about the personal upheaval and turmoil that I'm experiencing. Because where the internet is at now, it's very degrading and dehumanizing. Even though you can find community there, you're still on a chopping block. And why would I do that when I'm already cut open? Right.
And I think that's one of the hardest things to grasp is like, when it comes to the internet, it is a beautiful place to find community and people who relate to you. And I think that putting yourself out there is a beautiful thing. But I think the other side of that is there are people who genuinely don't wish you well, or they'll view you pouring your heart out and your suffering as entertainment.
Yeah, it's voyeurism.
Exactly, and I also feel like people's intentions and what they want for you, they could be wishing bad on you and not even be thinking that that's something they're actively doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I experience that and I feel it. So I'm extremely sensitive, which, I mean, I feel like that comes out in my work a lot. It also is shown in how I do business. Boundaries are more like lanes, not like fences.
Okay.
Or gates.
I like that.
I had to tell myself, like, okay, you can't hold people accountable in a way that's punitive, but still try to do that to yourself. You can't give everybody else the space to hold their burdens and their heavy feelings without finding a clearing for yourself. So I made the jar. And like the bottom of it, I put my body into it. And what I mean by that was when I had locks, I cut them and I saved them. Okay. So I laid the foundation with that. And then because coffee was like something that I did as a labor of love, but it was also like a money grab. Like whenever I was exhibiting it, what are you releasing? What are you calling in? Write it down, leave it in the jar.
So it wasn't only a graveyard for what you were leaving behind, like your past selves. You made it kind of a community thing. Yeah,
and it felt very, in the final pass, because it was exhibited multiple times, and I think that the timing of it, I just finally had to give up this thing that was like my cash cow and what I thought was like my chariot to financial stability, which was coffee, because I was so good at it. It was this element of performance, and if anything, it's like I can, in hindsight, take that this is maybe exactly where I need to be, but I was so scared to just do art full time. I'm still scared to do art full time.
But you're doing it.
Every day I get scared. It's okay to just do it scared.
Yeah, no, that's one of the most powerful things that I've ever learned in life is you got to do it when you're afraid. You got to push through that fear, and everything is a muscle, you know?
I think that fear is more of like, I think about when you look at a road, your horizon, but then you're like, I can't quite make out all the way over there, but I want to know. I feel like fear feels like that very liminal space. So I'm just like, fuck. Like, I'm not sure, but I want to get there. But how the fuck are we going to get there? How long is it going to take? Yeah. And then when I started making the music, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't recorded my own vocals since BAELONNIE. And I was like so insecure about how my voice sounded because I over processed my vocals. I've never felt like I couldn't sing, but I had to really learn how to accept myself as I was, but I was also gearing up to like get a major operation done. I got a breast reduction.
Full disclosure.
10 out of 10.
Yes. Congratulations on that.
I'm wearing a 4X t-shirt because I want to, not because it's the only thing that fits.
Right. And
a blessing.
Yeah, no, and leading back to what you just said about learning to accept yourself where you're at, I think that's so powerful. I think that's such a powerful thing when it comes to self-love, because you have to find that balance of accepting yourself for who you are and where you're at and not discarding yourself, but also going down that journey of improving and growing, not from a place of saying who I am right now is unacceptable, but just...
Right, it's just more like, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. We'll get there. I love when I see, especially Black women, they're like when they put a dish down and they be like, I'll get to it. That.
Yes.
I also started saying this during my early experience with like committing to art full time. First of all, I was like routines, because now I didn't have this job that was fucking up all my routines. I was like, well, if I have the same 24 hours in a day that everyone else does, what do I do? Like, I learned about agency in a way where I was like, do I want to get up and work out every day? Can my routines, once again, be flexible like lanes? I say this when I give people dating advice. I don't really date, but I'm good at relationships. Like, I'm good at being friendly with people, but that's also why I don't date. But we don't want to talk about. What are your hard no's? What are your fuck yeahs? And what are your negotiables?
And what are yours?
So hard no's are just like anything that feels obligatory because of guilt or shame.
That's powerful.
So like dinner plans with friends, but I'm completely pooped. I'm not going to no damn dinner to be sitting there sleepy and upset. Exactly. Once again, am I showing up as the person that I want to be in the future? Like poised, skin glowing, like moisturized, and like excited.
Yes, self-care.
Sometimes self-care looks like me just cleaning my house. I really like bare minimum maintenance self-care these days because I'm just like,
yes.
Ooh, a PB&J. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit in nothingness.
Yes, I totally feel you on that, especially in this internet age where it's a beautiful thing that we have so much self-care and, you know, mental health content out there on the internet, but it can be easy to get trapped in that comparison state where you're like, okay, if everything is not perfect in this way, or if I'm not doing
the fixing complex, or like the fixing bug, where it's like everything needs to be fixed. That negates the
purpose, I feel.
Yeah, that negates the purpose and the idea of self-love and self-acceptance. It's like, yes, conflict will always arise, just like there will always be something to do, but do you have to do it? And I feel less compelled to do that now. I guess after being so invested in my work, like with coffee, I felt like I had to do it because I was like, well, the money, honestly. It was an unbearable experience after a while. Like, I was like, I don't even, like, I know I'm good at this thing and like I have techniques, but I didn't care to be nice to the people I was serving because I didn't feel like they saw me as a human being. I was just a mechanism. And I was like, fuck, I didn't ever want to treat art like that. And in my first month of DJing full time specifically, I did that to myself. And that was where, like, okay, once again, hard nose, reschedule. Also, it's like my hard nose are like only doing things for money. Like, finance cannot come without fulfillment. Like, if you're going to talk about being anti-capitalist, because everybody has that sort of rhetoric in their online presence these days, that's where a good place to start. I think fuck no is like anything that like is kind of self-sacrificing to my fuck off time. And this is where I still like break my own boundaries sometimes with this. Is like my phone goes on do not disturb automatically from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
I'm like that as well.
I will respond and interact if I am on my phone within those times. But if you're contacting me and it's not urgent, no. Like, don't press me if you know that these are not my office hours. And I like to make jokes about that all the time. I was like, these are not my office hours.
I think it's an earth sign thing. And it's like, it's all love too. It's like, it's great to have people reaching out to you, but it's like,
you're left on red until 7.
Yeah. You gotta have that time for yourself, for your own mental. But I have to balance that out because I will forget to respond to people, or I'll mentally reply and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I never answered you. I'm so sorry. You know?
Yeah. Oof. I definitely do that from time to time, and I like the way that people remind me because it is gentle and it's usually with a little bit of humor.
Yes, because I will forget, you know. But leading back to what you were talking about, I had the pleasure of working with you on your project. Yes, BAELONNIE.
Actually, right here in this space. Yes, not in this specific studio, but literally on this floor, like down the hall.
And I know that, you know, self-love and self-worth and unrequited love, they were big themes. What I want to ask you is, was it hard for you to get to that point where you felt comfortable sharing this story and sharing the not so glamorous aspects of your journey? Did it take a while, or did you have some apprehension?
Oh my gosh, you know what's funny? I feel like that didn't come until after I put it out.
You're saying you didn't feel comfortable until you had made it and it was just out.
Yeah. Because I like went back. I think about how I was so rigid about my vision because I wanted to see this thing through, but I didn't follow my intuition initially and I kept veering from it. And I could see it in my work.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is what we put out ended up being as close to my original idea as it could get from all the work that everyone else has done. So it taught me a lot about collaboration. This also goes back to working in art full time. When you become your own boss, you also become your own subordinate. And like,
what do you mean by that?
I'm not gonna let no boss fuck up my eating schedule, or like I'm gonna have words with them about it. I have to have those words with myself, and in order for it to not be, once again, a punitive conversation, I need to eat. Like, wake up, you need to eat. It doesn't always have to be like a country breakfast, but like, get your coffee, get your smoothie, an egg.
And so do you feel like you kind of wore yourself thin during the production of that?
I wore myself thin because I didn't have, once again, I treated myself as like a mechanism. Like, down to the editing, I was like, I'm going to edit for 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, rather than just doing it when I feel like it, if I'm doing it when it feels like drudgery, and I mean, yes, there's always going to be something like you, like, oh, I don't want to do my laundry, I don't want to do it.
Right.
It's like, okay, cool. But it's like, okay, we just got it done. And I don't ever want that to be something that other people have to relate to, or something that I intend to, like, as a means to share space with people to feel like that. Like, that's not the vibe.
Yeah, I understand that. It can be easy to kind of lose sight of your own humanity when you have big plans and big goals and you can lay it all out. Like, this is how much I'm going to do at this time. And a recurring theme in my life is, you know, being productive isn't all about just doing the most in the least amount of time. It's really about setting that time aside to rest and eat and decompress.
You are your greatest tool. Yeah.
And I mean, especially, that leads me to my next question. I know that this was a very tumultuous and painful time in your life that you were tapping back into. So I'm sure that it was needed to step away from this. Did it ever get emotional for you? Did you ever feel like it was taking you back to a place? Or do you feel that by the time that you went into production with this, you had healed enough to where you weren't as vulnerable?
Wow, that's a really good question. Did it take me back to a place? No. Because truthfully speaking, throughout our production, I was still engaging in those kinds of dynamics with
the same person or different guy?
With BAELONNIE, because we had like groups of male characters, it was cool to like have my friends kind of help influence the visuals and how I portrayed like having a type, this and that, blah blah blah. It was really nice to be seen and observed in that way, because it made me aware. I was coming out of a dissociative state. It's like that in between of like being fully just zonked out and then coming into a sense of awareness and coming back into your body. I was settling back into my body and trying things out. I think the most jarring aspect and the most dysphoric aspect that like was triggering me was seeing myself. But it was because I was struggling with desirability and identity politics. We'll say that. And I was struggling with body dysphoria because I was still in flux. I had lost weight, but I was still not where I naturally, when there's something off, and it was weird because people would always be like, oh, you look good, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I don't feel like I look good. Or like, I don't feel like I look like what I want to look like or what I know myself to look like. And that was the thing that made me cringe. It wasn't really the unrequited love. Like, everybody goes through that. You play out your familiar dynamics, and I was ashamed to be making that art while also trying to make things work and still actively using my art to excuse that I was in this, like, the dynamics. Like, it was a thing where it was like, oh, well, because I'm aware, I can engage with this person and not get hurt. Still got hurt, but I also...
Been there.
I also felt bad. This was this thing where I was like, oh my gosh, the whole time we were making it, I was like, any one of these people could see this and know that it's about them to some capacity, because I didn't, like, the scenarios were vague. I was afraid of being seen by them and them trying to like reach out to resolve conflict, or like me honestly just not having the words to say, I'm sorry, I accept your apology, but I do not want to reconnect.
And that's a powerful thing.
It's still something that's really hard.
So you're one of those people who you feel that forgiveness is a powerful thing for your own spirit, even with people who have wronged you.
I feel like forgiveness is not owed. At what point do you fight the good fight and let people know that they've, like, verbally let people know, okay, you got me fucked up? When do you just charge it to the game and be like, you be safe over there? And when do you maneuver differently, and sometimes in a way where other people would classify it as like maybe fake, where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna be cruel to you, but I'm also not giving you an in.
Exactly. You're gonna move different. I mean, in my opinion, I'm still learning how to navigate that as well, but I will say a lot of times we give people the benefit of the doubt when they know what they did or they know how they made us feel, Yeah,
it's funny because I would say the main person that fuels the production of this, I can say that I'm at peace with this person and that we don't talk every day, but
you're in communication.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Passively. We might hang out.
What? Okay.
Yeah, but we might hang out, but it's not like okay, I'm gonna quote myself. They might hear it. They know. So it's not like, But I remember them hitting me up because they were like, hey, can you do my hair? And I was like, I said yes at first. And then I was like, this is kind of intimate. I have somebody right now that is a very intimate thing that we do. And then I was like, well, I also have somebody else in my life that I'm very close to, which it's strictly platonic, and I also like do their hair. And I'm like, okay, discernment. I don't want to open that door, but I was like, but damn, every day that I think about this person, I do wish that we could be friends. Like, we could be homies. Because we're annoying to each other. And I kind of like that. It forces me to really, like, identify my emotions, express them to the person, and ask them, like, how the fuck does your brain and heart work? Like, bro, like, you're like, what the fuck? That's part of the reason we, like, don't deal. Like, the way we express romantic interest is, like,
not compatible, not healthy.
Because that was one of the things that I said after BAELONNIE had been out for, like, some months. I was like, I love you, and there are aspects of the things that we do that I'll never forget. Like, love it. Great. 10 out of 10. Like, here are your kudos, but also we can love each other and not be compatible, and we can just take time and just not see each other.
Yes. Love from a distance is a very powerful thing. You know, we're all on our own paths, and sometimes those paths have to diverge so that you can go your own way. And a big thing that I'm learning is that not everybody is meant to go where you're going.
BAELONNIE had such a tone of, like, you can go your own way, I'm going my own way, but with an attitude.
Yes.
I wanted to get rid of that attitude. So when I made Graveyard, I was thinking about, like, why was that attitude so prevalent? And I was like, what wasn't being expressed? Like, what did I need to put in the jar? So the tracks were based on that. It was cathartic because instead of using lyrics, I used sounds and, like, literally just, like, sonic expression. And it was a very physical and visceral experience of me, like, breaking things, recording it, and, like, doing it alone. I was working at, like, 7 in the morning, 10 at night. Like, you know how when you, like, think about going home and doing something creative after leaving the bar?
Yeah.
I would do that. Or, like, I would come and work on music on my way to the fucking bar.
Oh, wow. So you're good with sleep, like, even if you're going to work into the night? Because I'm a night owl. So I'm trying to get out of that because sleep is so important. I'm like, how do you balance this?
Honor your ultradian rhythms. I'm a morning person. Honestly, from the time we finished BAELONNIE, everything from the time that we released it, and it's funny because right before we released it, the person I was speaking of, like, we were on, but then they kind of dumped me.
Oh.
Like, right before Valentine's Day. I got dumped, right? So the other person I was seeing while we were making this dumped me on Valentine's Day.
That's rough.
When I realized the principle of why I was upset, it wasn't because they dumped me. We could have solved this incompatibility issue without this emotional unavailability. And then I also was like, the slander.
They slandered you?
No, me. That was one of the lessons too when we were talking about, like, did I feel anything? I always felt that weird, like, damn, I'm running these niggas' names through the mud. Because you know how I would talk on set and shit like that. And I was like, is this really the person that I want to be? Like, is this really how I want future me to show up?
Do you want to be a bag lady, essentially? Or do you want to let it go?
Fuck no, I don't want to do that shit. I mean, we all have shit and we're all going to carry things. But I remember somebody told me that I seemed so much lighter. And they hadn't seen me in a while. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not producing a film right now. So, like, they're like, no. Something about you has changed. Like, your whole approach to things has changed. And I was like, well, I don't want to hurt my own feelings. I had to look at myself and I was like, well, I was being persistent with somebody who did say that they didn't have the space for this thing. So I could have left it at that. It is on this other person for constantly engaging me in ways that negated my terms of the dynamic, and the acts could have been negotiated. And to put that in plain terms is like, yeah, we probably could have fucked because, like, I liked them enough as a person. And we could have just done that regularly and I could have just went home. But they were also just being like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm just using it. That's kind of all we really need. Like, listen, you could have got your bars up. I could have ripped rocks off. We did not have to be cool because there are so many other aspects of our life and, like, the way that we approached our values. So incompatible. I was just persistent about making it work my way. And I also wasn't presenting these, like, other options. Not to say that it was all on me, but, like, we were thinking. Like,
and I think it takes time to forgive yourself for not having the tools that you have now. Not only to move differently, but to think differently. You know, it's all part of the journey. What would you say is your personal advice for anybody out there who may be recovering from an unrequited situation?
Ooh, okay. Look at your platonic relationships.
Yes.
Look at look at your platonic relationships and what you love about them. This is the okay. So wow, I feel like it's funny because the relationship advice that I give.
I'm just like that. No, maybe it's an Earthside thing. We like give advice, but it's like, no, I'm talking to myself as well. Don't think I'm preaching. I need to hear this.
I can say that I'm in a place where it's like, I need to hear this because it's affirmative. It's a reminder, not because I'm out of practice. Like, I walk in this. I have wonderful friends. I love all of my friends. And I think that in order for me to fall in romantic love, I have to, one, see myself in that person, and not in the narcissistic way and like borderline I like envious way. You know, when Thich Nhat Hanh says like the first pillars of love is to understand the suffering of the person that you love, or to want to, because sometimes you don't automatically just get it. We might not have the same experiences, but we might have like something that's relative that hits the same, and it's like, damn, that's crazy. That shit. If their qualities stack up to like some of those of my close friends, yeah. And it's not something that I'm like sifting through like on a list. It's something that feels inherent and intuitive. Getting real about that, getting real about where you want to be. And I'm not talking about the like, I want to be traveling and this and that. It's like, who do you want to be when you wake up in the morning? I always make jokes on the internet when I like have my bonnet on, fucking haven't washed my face, and I'm like, everybody think I'm fine as hell in public, but you gotta wake up to this if you really trying to slide in my DMs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still gonna wake up goofy. I'm still gonna wake up ashy. Some days I'm gonna wake up existential. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Right,
like,
right.
If you go to sleep next to somebody that expects you to be on all the time, you know?
I think it's important to be in a relationship with somebody who understands that we all have seasons that we go through in life.
Once again, understanding your loved one's suffering and understanding their means of easing their suffering without judgment. For instance, I like to get real moody and elusive, but there's like the handful of folks that I just like, okay, I really get it. And like, I'm just like crying and shit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna cry on the internet. I'm gonna cry on my music. I'm gonna cry on the decks. Yo, I do cry when I DJ sometimes. Or sometimes I just get that little like tear moment when I'm envisioning something and I'm like, oh, that's it. I think that sometimes people think that, oh, like, I'm hearing about you going through it in hindsight. It's like, well, I just needed to go through it by myself. Like, I don't think you need to be drug into this. My surgery played a part in that. I met somebody, okay, well, this will be like...
Where? On the operating table or what?
I met somebody before that.
Okay.
I'm blushing.
Like, I'm dating my surgeon, actually.
No, he just had a baby. But
whoa, okay.
Okay, so T, like... people that understand your language and that you can build a language with.
Yeah.
Once again, those are like me and my friends. Like, we all have our own
world.
Rhetoric. Just like you call me by my full name. I never think anything of it. When you ask, I'm just like, no, what?
Well, this is the first time I've ever asked. So, like I said, I'll call you what you want to be called, you know?
You asked out of respect, but it never bothered me because it never occurred to me because it was natural.
Right.
It was like when we met the first time, we were just like smoking with Donovan. Like, I was just like, damn. I was like, do you know you're pretty?
Oh, thank you.
And you said the same thing. I was like, and Donovan was like, you ain't know? And I was like, I've only seen this person like, what, 3 times, 2 of which I was DJing and half asleep. And then there was another time, I think you were like modeling or something. I was like, or I think I said, I was like, you should model. I was like, I need to finish this project because I knew then. I think it was the same thing with Ellis and like, look at where we all are now.
Right. And I feel like a lot of times in life, people can see something within you that you won't even see within yourself. And so thank you for seeing that within me. You know what I mean?
To be very concise about the advice is like, when I said be clear about who you want to be and like where you're at, the surgery thing. I had to be very honest with myself. I kept getting into unrequited situations. Partially because I was repeating dynamics that I was familiar with. You know, everybody goes through like neglect or some sort of something, right?
Right.
And it just feels familiar. It keeps popping up until you're aware of it. Right. And actively you're like, this doesn't appeal to me anymore. The way it stopped appealing to me was when I was like honest about wanting a relationship and not being ashamed of it. Because I used to say on set, I was like, yeah, I want a relationship, and then I'd be like, but you know, like, and I would like list all these stipulations, or I would be kind of like coy and snarky about it, and it was just very confusing. Yeah, that's gonna attract confusion. Like, I'm going to go towards people that make me confused. Why am I hurting my own feelings? But then I had a moment where I was just like, I don't have it, so don't pretend to be in it. And there were people that I was idealizing as if I was in such things. And when I put them in the position, I witnessed how they moved, and then I was like, they don't really want this. If not with me. Also, I think that because you're not compatible with somebody, or because somebody that you want doesn't want you back, that does not intrinsically affect your worth. It's just a difference in desire. I had to be very clear about what is desirable to me. And that gets a little weird because it's like, okay, it's a little political. Like, I'm queer. Sometimes dating straight men is just not it. I make a joke now because I'm like, they're not my target audience. Not like...
Same.
If I meet one that is with the shits, exception. I've met a couple. Exceptional.
Once that you learned how to be more intentional about what you want for yourself and what you do desire, the type of people who gravitated towards you, you feel like that changed? You found more people who were actually compatible?
Yeah. It's funny because SZA said this, and I took her advice. So I'm going to pass this advice along. Because people were like, you lost all this weight, you glowed up. And she's like, well, I was big and everybody thought I was fine then. Right. I didn't think I was fine because I knew that there was something wrong and I was sick all the time. That was me before I found out about like my digestive stuff. A lot of my bloating was just because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't drinking enough water. I wasn't eating enough. When you're preparing for a surgery, you have to be regimented. Like, I had to go on a diet. Which means I had to kick my sugar addiction. With the sugar addiction went the addiction to like emotionally unavailable men, because I was like, I didn't have the bandwidth because I was going through withdrawals to deal with shit. And sometimes circumstantially, it's like, I ain't got no job. Why the fuck am I on Tinder trying to go on dates? Nigga, I'm broke.
Exactly. Like, a lot of times other people can just be a distraction from our own shortcomings, you know, a fun distraction sometimes. And even those situations where the other person isn't on the same page, but they're kind of messing with you. It's like that challenge. It's like some kind of sick form of entertainment. But I feel
it's like when people are like, oh, I'm bored, let's fuck. Like, no.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. That's the worst time to do it. Damn, I'm also getting older. I'm excited for my 30s.
Yes. You know, the 30s are the new 20s, they say. Have you traveled a lot? Have you been out of the country before?
No.
Oh, really?
So that was like my goal, is like by 30, I want to have a passport and a means to just take the year 30 and go wherever I want.
Well, you're on your way there. You know, you're already sustaining yourself with your art. Your name is getting out there.
If in year 30 I could get paid to fly somewhere for a gig, I want to get paid to fly somewhere that I want to be and to do a show. Or to do some sort of creative endeavor that I do for business.
And you will, you know, let's speak that into existence. You're on your way there. It will happen sooner than you think. And I hope that you remember this moment. For me, it's kind of hard to remember, like, oh man, this is something that I prophesized. This is something that I used to just think about, or I wrote it down.
SZA's advice was like, she's like, I was tired of feeling sick, so I got serious about what I needed to do to maintain my health. She's like, yeah, honestly, I started wearing a retainer, doing very simple things in my daily life. It makes the maintenance of my body easier. So she specifically was talking about dry brushing and, like I said, wearing a retainer. But I thought about that. It's like, what's my retainer? What's my dry brushing? I don't have an in-depth, like, crazy-ass skincare routine, but I take care of my skin. I try to eat as many vegetables as possible, but I also don't restrict myself. Because after dieting, my relationship to food was very like,
if I eat this, am I going to get my weight back? Am I not going to get surgery?
Identifying the goal and like why this was a goal, meaning the breast reduction, thinking about the inner turmoil and the inner work that I had to do. Because it was like, you have to love yourself up until, like, you don't magically get off the table and feel like that bitch. There's work that gets you to that point. So like having to find ways to feel really good and empowered in the body that I didn't like.
That's
like,
powerful, yes.
It also made me think about what was desirable to me. I was like, well, if I don't want this chest, what about it it's just good enough to make me feel okay. With dysphoria, especially like also being non-binary, like there's so much rhetoric around gender and that. You'll know when you know, because even though we say it's for us, people recognize it sooner than we do. We don't have the luxury of looking at ourselves directly while we're moving through spaces. Other people do.
What would they recognize before you recognize it in yourself? Could you explain that?
My posture, the way I dance, the way I play, me not being hesitant to take photos, even the way I show up. Because there's a difference between me showing up in sweats because I'm intentionally like, I am not getting dressed, versus me wearing, like I said, like this 4X t-shirt because it's the only thing that fits. Not in a size context, but in a like, this is the only thing that I could just wear because it's like comfortable. I need like my clothes as a safety blanket. Like wearing my clothes because I want to wear my clothes, but not wearing clothes because like I'm gonna just put something on because I can't be outside.
It goes back to like getting out of that survival mode, you know, just being able to survive and thrive, you know. And shout out to SZA. I feel like SZA has been brought up in almost every single one of my interviews.
She get on my nerves now.
Why? Because of the music, the lack of the album, or what?
Oh no, fuck that. Good, don't put that shit out. Just like Adele said.
Not a SZA diss.
This is not a diss. No. Cheers to the album and her being like, I ain't putting that shit out right now. Because you know when.
Right.
It takes time for a baby to germinate. Seeds are thrown from plants all the time. Plants have offshoots and like little babies all the time. They're meant to be cut and not always to be like propagated.
And I also think, just like how you said, it's very important for you to create not for consumption and not for money. I'm sure that artists like SZA, it's important for them to do that too. You don't want to lose yourself as an artist, you know?
But it's her perpetrating all the petty shit in her music. I'm sorry, if I hear another teenager singing, and I'm wondering if I hate you. Yes. Okay, sure. I think it's because I didn't want to be sad anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I made all this sad bitch music. You were the sad bitch I listened to when I was making sad bitch music. God damn it, I don't want to be sad no more. I don't want to, like, you're sick of these niggas? Yeah, I was too, so I'm off them.
That's one of my favorite songs by her, but I definitely played it out. Like, I don't want to be taken to that place, but I think that one of the biggest things that gravitates people towards SZA, of course, is control. And, you know, what I've heard a lot is that there's a different song for each stage of your 20s.
Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, are you a fan of Control, and do you have a song that you think relates to you?
BAELONNIE was always compared to it because of the way I talked about my emotions. And that was the biggest compliment. And people were like, oh, I don't mean to compare you. It's like, no, compare me. That's what the mind does naturally.
Right.
It was an album I cried to, and it's funny because the person that I was mentioning where I was like, oh yeah, we might hang out, they often made me feel like the tone of Supermodel. They often made me feel like I had to get cute in spite of, because I wasn't that picture perfect imagery of what they wanted on their arm. But it's like, what you calling me at 2 a.m?
Right.
But you're confiding in me about things that like the bitch you're fucking, well, the other bitch you're fucking is not. You know what I mean? And it's like, and why do I let you? But that also shows me where my values are, where I was like, let me be honest about where I'm at. That's relationship behavior, but not relationship status. And while I am very flexible, definitely not monogamous, and definitely not into a lot of like heteronormative
dynamics.
Yeah, and hegemony. That doesn't mean you have the right to disrespect me and my time. And that doesn't mean that you have the right to treat me like I'm disposable.
Yes.
So
yes.
When people saw that I was moving different, and like she was saying the same thing, she's like, people were like, oh my God, you're fine. She's like, do you think I'm fine because I'm skinny, or do you think I'm fine because I'm carrying myself differently? And it's like, you know that the real answer is both, but I felt that, but I was feeling it before the surgery, and it felt really nice to see that. I had to get real. I was like, what about me feels desirable out of the context of the meat suit?
Exactly.
Am I working out because I want the meat suit to be ogled? Or am I working out because
you want to be healthy?
I still want stallion knees. I want to have stallion knees until I'm 50 and beyond.
Yes.
What I do with them stallion knees is my business. Yeah, like I love strength, and that also influenced the way I approach it. So it's like I still have like my like solo yoga practice, but I met somebody, And like he would come in on his day off because it was along his running trail. I still feel heavy when I run. And I feel like, what is the point of moving with this urgency? This person, as well as all of y'all working on BAELONNIE with me, I had to realize, like, if I want to appear soft and content, I have to, like, allow that in my life.
Yes.
But it took a minute. I had to stop myself because I realized, I was like, this person is trying to console you and you're being mean for no reason. And I told him, I was like, I'm being mean because I'm not allowing myself to receive affection because I'm grappling with feeling worthy and you don't deserve me being mean to you. So I'm sorry for that.
Yes. And I think for a lot of people, it's something that you have to learn in life is being able to receive, being able to have things done for you, or just, you know, not feeling like you have to put yourself down when you get a compliment. You know, that's kind of a habit that I'll get. Like if somebody compliments me about something, I'll be like, oh yeah, but this and this could have been better. But, you know, and I had a professor, shout out to Marion Dare, like she literally called me out and she was like, Kyrie, you do this thing where when you get a compliment, you then like downplay it and you like insult yourself. And she was literally like, stop doing that.
Take your credit. She was
like, you know what you should try? Just say thank you. And I'm like, wow, you know, I'm just going to do that.
You know what's funny? Because last night when I was like, I train wrecked and everybody's like, I don't think you could ever. I was like, I train wrecked for me. You know, every great artist has a bad night. Have you seen a bad Beyonce show?
I do remember as a kid seeing her like fall down the stairs, but that's the only time I've ever seen Beyonce do anything bad, honestly.
But that's what I mean is like she's had bad performances where she's fallen downstairs.
Yeah.
People still want to drink her bathwater.
Exactly.
She's also born the day before me.
Yes. So much of what you said, it was very much Beyonce. And I think the biggest thing, I mean, other than, you know, having to grapple with perfectionism and all that is like, I think it's very powerful that, you know, you said that you don't want to use the internet as a place to just expose yourself, but it seems like you're pretty comfortable doing that through your art, you know, doing that in a healing way, in a way that sometimes gets you paid. And I think it's healthy. It's beautiful. I love
That's tea. You know how people are always like, boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries. I've done enough fucking around and finding out. I want to settle in.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be cozy. I was like, I want some routine. I was like, I know that sounds boring, but I was like, that's the shit that's like. I was like, that shit sounds so enthralling to me because I don't have to think about where this and this and this is coming from. Like, I don't have to feel like I'm always on the hunt. There was one day where I was having a really bad body day, and they were just like, we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, as much as I feel like I would have liked to come home and there's someone there because I live alone, it would be so hard to maintain a romantic relationship and be fulfilled in it because it's like, I would not want to have sex. That's a thing for me. Like, that's a pillar for me. Grown. Like, I want to be fucking. It just feels sacred. Like, it's not in like a, like my body is a temple type shit, but like, or not in a religious sense. It's sacred because it's like, I wouldn't want to give you this because it doesn't feel good for me. Right. It wouldn't feel good for you because I'm having a hard time just maintaining contentment. And barely that. Like, I'm not even giving myself that bare minimum right now because it's not possible physically. Identifying those circumstances, like I said, it's like, why am I on Tinder talking about looking for a date if I can't pay for a date? Exactly. And it's because I want equity. That's like the biggest advice I could give is just like knowing where you're at so that you can identify like realistically everything that you want can be within reach. But is this the right timing? Like, is this the right environment for it to thrive? It's like a houseplant. If you know you get 14 hours of sunlight, like direct sunlight, and this plant needs mostly shade and humidity, even if you put it in a shady corner, the heat from that sunlight is going to make that plant wilt. Right. And I think a lot of times we still try to cram ourselves in these little corners and we try to make it work and we try to make it fit and we're chasing after something outside of ourselves, you know, that feeling of love. I definitely find that sometimes we get into these relationships because, you know, we have certain shortcomings and certain things that we're not doing for ourselves. And maybe this other person is a crutch for that when it comes to, you know, the self-love and the body issues and all that. We can be
kind of seeking out another person to...
That person I was talking about, I was like, why was I holding on to this when I knew that they wouldn't commit fully romantically? And when I realized, like, oh, the way that we do emotions are just different, and it's not really compatible, I was like, it's because that was the first time I felt desired at the size that I was, or even when I didn't feel desirable to myself. I don't know, there was something about the urgency of them hitting me up.
On the spot, 2 a.m., I'm in your city, da-da-da-da. Pull up. Like,
you need it. Like, you feel like you need it. And you feel like you're needed. And it's like, fuck. Yeah, but, like, I need me.
Exactly.
And so, like, also kind of cultivating that within yourself, because people are like, how do you create that in yourself? It's like, I am a person that lives with an inner monologue.
Yeah, I talk to myself.
Right. And so I was like, yeah, the inner voice in my head, it oscillates between me as a teenager, me as a child, and me as a parent. The angsty teen in me that, like, sorts through things and that looks for guidance is usually like, I want to feel wanted. Like, I want to feel like I belong. It could be sexual, it could be romantic, it could just be existential, it could be creative. And it's like, okay, well, you know that you wouldn't belong if you weren't yourself.
Yes.
The logical, like, omnipotent, the God voice is like, yeah, but if you're not you about it, like, you don't really fit there.
Exactly.
When people are always like, you always look so stern, or you always look so focused, like, I feel like I've had to explain myself a lot less. I don't have to explain how I am. I usually feel like people are seeking to understand how and why my mind works the way it does, or like how and why my stature is what it is. Like, they're more interested in the journey and some of the origins. They're not, like, picking me apart. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are people that are picking me apart, but am I paying them any attention?
Right.
I'm trying not to.
No,
Let me be real. I'm still sensitive.
Lonnie, aka Lionel J Bands, I just want to thank you so much again for making the time. Wrapping up, do you have any advice for fellow artists, fellow creatives, fellow people on just the artistic journey, the journey of self-love, just anything that comes to mind? You know, what would you tell your past self?
Self-love is a practice, not a destination. I say that shit all the time, and I love that I say this shit all the time, because I'm like, I want to be quoted.
Yes, no, it's a journey.
There's nothing wrong with being notorious. I think that that's the hardest thing about doing art professionally. Everybody gets shamed for something, right? People get shamed for wanting to be known, but it's like, well, how are you gonna build a creative community? How are you gonna build that feeling of fellowship if you don't put yourself out there?
Right.
But understanding that clout doesn't always equal vanity, or like, it doesn't always come from a superficial place. Like, you can be a clouded person because you're just a solid person, and even solid people do questionable shit. In the era of talking about abolition, and I do believe that abolition is on the horizon, you can't be a cop to the people that you love, and you can't be a cop to your fucking self. Like, when I'm in a critical state because I'm not necessarily happy where I'm at, when I'm discontent and when I'm feeling insecure, I do get hypercritical about other people's hypocrisies. But that's because I'm ashamed of my own, or not even ashamed of my own. I don't allow space for my own to exist without me trying to fix them.
So accepting yourself where you're at and not judging yourself so harshly. I think that we all have some toxicity within us, you know. To some people, we might have played the villain in their story. And I think that once you grasp that, you're able to see yourself fully, you know?
Yeah. It's okay to be scared to be a villain. Being a villain in somebody's story doesn't mean that you're inherently bad. Stop placing value judgment on the roles that you play in your life and in other people's. It sucks because, like, gender, race, religion, where, like, we assume responsibility or are placed on pedestals, class.
There's a hierarchy, essentially.
Yeah, it's like removing that hierarchy and literally thinking about, like, your body being a meat suit and, like, your soul being, like, kind of just like a vast space within it. It's not all one thing. Yeah. And these are things that I remind myself of daily.
It seems that you've learned how to have a very gentle and uplifting inner voice when it comes to yourself. And I think
that's a goal.
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
And that's such a powerful thing to have, like we can be our own worst critic. I think it's important to have that inner monologue of wanting to do better, but a lot of times that voice can just be so judgmental and negative to where it's beating you down. It's not energizing you. It's not giving you space to be human. So I commend you for having that,
I'm gonna cry. And maybe this is also the advice that I would give to my younger self. It's like, I would ask myself these questions before proceeding. Here are some questions to ask yourself if you're feeling a little off. Is the thing that you want something that you want momentarily, or do you want to maintain it? Because that'll determine your approach. If it's something that you want to maintain, how is it really going to fit into your life? That was the advice about unrequited love. Say they want
5 nights a week, y'all together, mostly at their place.
Bitch, I could never.
Right.
I could tell you that just off the logistics alone. Fuck
Yeah.
no. If most of them are leaning toward the fuck no, or it has to be negotiated more so in favor of the thing and not you.
It's not flowing naturally. It's not, you're forcing it.
Sometimes we just speak things and we forget about it. Like, you know how people end up with like accidental like trees in their backyard because like someone was like eating like an orange and they were spitting seeds?
Mm-hmm.
I think about that like ideas because I used to be so fucking like to my ideas and be like, no one else can do this but me. Absolutely not. Spit them out like seeds. It's like okay for these things to like pop up and not happen immediately. But because we live in an attention economy, the internet era, like I have to discern what is my desire, like my physical, like
I am called to be at my computer today.
Versus
no, I gotta put out another EP, like I gotta be on a roll.
So doing it from a place of abundance rather than desperation and scarcity. Is that what you're saying, essentially, when it comes to creation and ideas?
Yeah, and just like desire.
And desire. And I sense that in all of the aspects of creation and just in life. You want to do it from a pure place, like inside and out. I feel like you find the art in everything, even with going through, the journey with your self-image and learning about your body. I mean, I've seen how you became like a whole chef with these healthy meals and all that. And a lot of people wouldn't be able to rise to the occasion or find the fun in it, And it's a beautiful thing. I commend you.
Thank you. Survival doesn't always have to be drudgery. Like, things will pan out. Like, you can't force or idealize the outcome too much. That's also with anything. Like, something, I don't want to say might not hit, because it'll hit, but it's just not what you intended or expected. Some things just don't.
Right. Perfection is an illusion.
Perfection ain't real.
Right. And when you're taking on things that involve other people, it's never going to come out exactly the way that you think.
Even when you work alone. And I think learning that compromise isn't a bad thing, learning that your savory emotions like anger, sadness, just like questioning and insecurity, it's not bad. Why are you placing value judgments on this emotion? Who told you to feel this way about feeling this way? That was the last piece of advice.
I like that.
Because I gotta ask it every day. Why? Like, I woke up and I was like, do I feel like quitting DJing? Fuck no. I was like, I actually feel like playing more because I played a bad set. I was kind of waiting for it to happen. It's okay to be disappointed. And sometimes it's okay to be disappointed without seeking to like avenge it or to like reconcile.
Yes.
I get disappointed in myself. I get disappointed in people. People get disappointed in me.
It's a natural thing, and you've learned, it seems, to just let your emotions flow naturally without judging them or trying to change them, or like you said, feeling an emotion about the emotion you feel, But thank you again. Can you just let our viewers and everybody out there who may be listening know where to find you, Lonnie?
In your bed. No.
Find me in the streets.
Find me in the streets. Motherlode Chai. That is mother like the birthright. LODECHAI. On Instagram and Instagram only. Lionel J Bands on SoundCloud. Bandcamp. I have a website where my radio archive can be found. It is dammitlonnie.com.
And to view BAELONNIE and the Love Me Nots.
That's on the website.
Okay, bet.
Also, find out the strappenings at strap worldwide on Instagram. BAELONNIE can be found on my website because I have a rebrand coming up.
Okay, yes. Well, I'm excited for the rebrand.
I'm doing club music for fun and just as a way to study music, but I'm also doing some like indie kind of soul, kind of R&B stuff.
Oh, okay.
I got some music on the way.
Watch out, SZA. Nah.
I love her. I think Good Days was the closest thing to a happy
yeah.
track, but it was still very
Sad.
existential.
Well, you know, SZA is a Scorpio. That's my
God
rating, so I
damn.
kind of get it. We kind of live in the darkness.
I want to hear a song about her relations with Kehlani, and
Ooh.
that's tea.
Shout out to Kehlani. Well, on that note, this has been NEOSOULED Radio with Lonnie, aka Lonald J. Bands. I am Kyrie Nashim, aka NEOSOULED, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening and watching. Peace, and remember, your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. Peace out.
That was prolific as fuck.
Thank you.
Whoa.
I didn't know that.
No, the way you said that, I was